can you introduce yourself to us and tell us a bit about your role in Tide?
Sure. Well, I'm Ruth and I'm a founder director of Tide. I took over as chair from Jean Totty in April this year. She was also one of our original directors. So she'd laid the foundation for the work.
And can you also tell me a little bit about the background to Tide and how it all began?
Well, Tide started as an idea out of that grew out of the lived experiences of directors and staff in the Life Story Network. Jean herself was a carer at the time. Her father since died, and she chaired a group called United Carers for Dementia. And in that role, she campaigned successfully for the National Dementia Action Alliance in England to run a carers call to action. And that ran from October 2013 to March 2015. And what that did was demonstrate the need for an involvement network for carers and former carers of people with dementia. The idea being to connect people together and to give them skills and confidence so that they felt able to speak up and try and influence change. In the discussions about the legacy from the call to action, Life Story Network put their hands up and said, well, we'll take this on, we'll make something of it. And we were able to get some development money from the Department of Health in England and from the Alzheimer's Society. And eventually we were able to get substantial grant funding, both from the big lottery and from the Life Changes Trust. And in doing that work and getting that funding, our branding and our mission and our values were all developed with carers and former carers.
And so for you, why is Tide important and needed for carers and former carers?
Well, as far as we know, and people tell us this, Tide is unique in a couple of ways. First of all, lots of organisations support carers in their caring role in Scotland as well as in the rest of the UK. The difference is that we invest in carers through our Carers Development Programme. So, as I said before, we give them knowledge, skills and confidence so that they can use their voice in whatever way suits them best. So, for example, some carers enjoy standing up and speaking at a conference. Some are good at writing, so they might write a blog. Some might want to get involved locally to try and improve services. Quite a lot of carers and former carers get involved in research, both in terms of designing and shaping the research, but also as research participants. And some trainers also deliver training with us. So I ran a workshop a couple of months ago with some clinical psychology students, and a really important part of that was two carers telling their stories. And that's far more powerful than me telling their story on their behalf. So that always goes down well, and we always get very positive feedback. We're also unique, I think, because we make sure that we provide support both before and after an involvement activity. We would never ask a carer to stand up and speak at a conference without helping them prepare, offering support and debriefing them afterwards, because telling your story to other people, especially in a high profile event, can be a very emotive experience, and people do need to be able to debrief from that.
And so what led Tide to coming to Scotland?
Well, the big lottery grant enabled us to develop in England, so we were keen to explore opportunities in Scotland, and we had some initial discussions with the Life Changes Trust. They were encouraging, so we submitted a bid, and we were absolutely delighted when that was successful in 2017. We saw great opportunities here.
Yeah. And so what do you think have been some of the biggest impacts that Tide's had in Scotland?
I think we managed to combine developing our direct work with carers through our development programme with forging links and getting a seat at the table at a strategic level with Scottish Government and with partner agencies. And a lot of credit goes to you, Amanda, for that, because you've worked really hard to raise our profile across the country. So our carers' voices are represented in various national forums. They've contributed to cross-party groups. They've spoken at conferences and workshops, and their experiences have helped us develop our Living Grief and Bereavement and our Restoring Relationships toolkits, which were funded by the Scottish Government. So I think we've done really well in getting Tide embedded in the psyche of the dementia world in Scotland, and we're much better known, and we are asked to do work, and we're asked for our advice and our expertise.
And how do you feel yourself about the achievements and progress that Tide's made in Scotland since it started here 4 years ago?
I think it's been amazing. I think the progress is phenomenal, really. We've had such a strong and committed staff team, and they've really both demonstrated the benefits of working with carers as equal partners, but they've actually lived that and acted as role models for how to do it, because a lot of professionals talk about it, but actually doing it is quite a skill. And I think we've demonstrated that it's possible and it can be really effective. And the stories that you're going to hear from carers at these events are great examples of that. You know, they are included, they are alongside us, they are working with us and alongside us. And that's the message that we want to get across to everybody.
And why do you think, or what do you think are the main reasons for our successes in Scotland?
Well, when we started to grow Tide in Scotland, we were very clear that we didn't want to establish Tide as a competitor or to replace or duplicate anything that was already operating here. We believe that what Tide offers complements the work of other agencies. So we've always been very clear that we want to work in partnership. And I think we've managed to strike the right balance. So, like many other organisations as well, of course, we've had to be flexible. We've had to switch to online working, virtual ways. And although the context of having to do that, the pandemic and all the consequences of that were pretty horrific, nonetheless, it has enabled us to reach a lot more carers than we could have done previously, and connect them with each other, which is part of our overall objective. So, for example, you know, we've got carers in Wales who talk regularly with carers in Scotland. They wouldn't have been able to do that previously. They might have met once a year, perhaps at an event, but they can now meet weekly or fortnightly or whatever through the various events that we run and facilitate. And I think that's great, and they've really benefited from that. So they can share their experiences with all that involves in terms of mutual support and understanding, but they also pool their ideas, and it's those ideas that we've drawn on to inform our work. So we don't just run a coffee morning as a social event. We use those conversations to inform our work and help us decide on things that we need to campaign about or produce some materials about or talk to other organisations about.
And finally, Ruth, as we finish off here, what are your hopes for Tide, both in Scotland and across the rest of the UK in the future?
Well, I want Tide to flourish and grow. The board is absolutely clear about this. There's a place for Tide. It's important. We fill an important niche. And if we weren't here, there would be a big gap. So times are tough in the charity sector right now, but we know that what we offer is unique, as I said before, and our carer members want us to continue, and our partners value what we do. So as we start to emerge from the pandemic, it's even more important that carers' voices are heard and acted on. People with dementia and carers have been hardest hit in this pandemic, and carers have taken up most of the slack because health and social care services reduced. In some cases, they've disappeared altogether, and carers have stepped in. So they're doing even more now than they were before. And we know that already they're the biggest dementia carer workforce. So their stories must be told and their stories must be heard, and we want to make sure that we do both.